group of French guys that were there. They operated FT4TA. That was before FT4 was even known as a mode. They were there for 10 days, 7 ops, 70,000 queues, 1,800 uniques. There's no reason why, as far as I know, that the French can't go here again. It is number 20 on the most wanted. Heard Island. In fact, my slide is a little possibly outdated. They've just recently changed the prefixes in some of the countries, the VKs, the VK0s and VK9s. Heard Island is now going to be supposedly from WIA or from ACMA, the authority in Australia. They're going to change the prefix to VK9. I have no idea why. It doesn't make any sense, but and all the hams are, the DX hams and VK are kind of upset about the change. But it's Heard Island, last on in 2016, VK0EK. This one usually comes on typically every generation. So like every 20 years, somebody ends up going there. In fact, when I started the Daily DX, VK0IR was just either just finishing or just starting. So it's about every 20 years. Could be some problems with getting permission to operate because of ecological concerns. Another one that's bio restrictions is the Chesterfields, FK/C. Last the expedition was TX3X in 2015. I think I can go ahead and say this. It used to come on every 4 or 5 years. This one was a direct result of the rewrites of DXCC 2000. And this was added to the list in March of 2000. This one used to come on every 4 or 5 years. K5GS and his group had planned to go here. Unfortunately, they could not get past the restrictions. So that, again, that's another country that's in that list, and I'll show you that at the end here. ZL9, another biorestriction area. This one, as some of us old timers will know, was ZL9 was Auckland and Campbell Islands. About maybe 7 or 8 years ago, the DXCC changed the name to, it didn't change anything with the status or anything, but just the name to New Zealand Subantarctic Islands, because there's a bunch of them. And the last operation from ZL9 was ZL9A, which was a IOTA DXpedition by VE3 LYC. He went to one of the rarer islands that had never been on before. Again, also on ZL9, Glenn, excuse me, Gene, K5GS was working on that one too and gave up on it. KH5, Palmyra Jarvis. I'm not sure why this slide is still here. It's not supposed to be here. This is out of the top 25. It's like somewhere around 40, I think, after the N5J group. But since we have the slide, they did a great job. 106,000 queues. You can get to Palmyra as a eco tourist. It is possible. It's expensive, but you can get there. So that one is out. Number 16, South Sandwich Islands, VP0S. The last expedition was VP8STI in 2016. It's probably going to be a real long time before anyone goes here, basically because it's on the way to nowhere. You have to basically plan at the expedition and go here. There's nothing else other than Antarctica if you go there, and you have to go by South Georgia to go here. Deshosheo, here's one I'm surprised it has not been on. Many of you will remember the K5D the expedition in 2009 by Bob Alphin and his crew. They did a fantastic job. They worked well with the Fish and Wildlife Service. There were no issues. So I'm very surprised that some group hasn't come forward and tried to put on a next DXpedition here. Not aware of anyone that is, but it's virtually an easy place to get to from the US, or even, I believe they ended up going from Puerto Rico to this one. St. Peter and St. Paul Rocks. This one is number 14. There are 3 PY0s, Trindade, Martin Vaz. The most recent one, which was a DXpedition just in this last year, I think, for a couple of 4 days, I think. And then PY0 Fernando Di Norona. Well, this is the rarest one, PY0S. The last time it was on was in 2015. There was a good DXpedition in 2012. Up until prior to COVID, this one would usually come on every 3 to 5 years. And the last few times that this one was on was by PY0S, who was a scientist who was going there and would operate in his spare time. It wouldn't surprise me if the Brazilians are working on this. VK0 Macquarie. Again, I think this one is going to change its prefix to VK9. No, this is in the, well, I'm not sure, I'm sorry. Anyway, Macquarie, VK0. There is a base there. They have lots of scientists. Usually what happens when someone goes there is they're part of the crew that stay there for a year. They are either a technician or a radio man, and they happen to have a license. In most cases, they get indoctrinated real quick on what a pileup is when they go. The last time this happened was in 2022, VK0MQ. There is a wet noodle, antenna that's up, and they don't want to change it, they don't want to do anything. It works like a dummy load. But the last guy that was there did a lot of FT8 work, which helped some guys work it for an all-time new one. There has never been a DXpedition here. I'm aware of at least one group that has been trying for over a year now, probably a year and a half or more, to go to Macquarie. Let's hope they can get there. Midway, KH4. The last operation was in 2011. It was a contractor that was working there. He ticked off the locals, and they kind of made it so now ham radio is not an approved activity for Midway. Now, having said that, just this year, the lady in charge of the island, Midway, that works for Fish and Wildlife Service, happened to have a technician license. Unfortunately, she never got on the air. She was an MCOM was her main interest. One of the guys who's a DXpeditioner who knows about Midway, I tried to highly encourage him to go there earlier this year, just to kind of hold her hand and say, here's how you do this, and kind of give her an example of how to handle a pileup. Unfortunately, that never happened, and she is no longer on the island. But maybe she'll go to another one of the islands in the Pacific, or KP5 or KP1. So you never know who has a license. ZS8, Prince Edward and Marion Islands. This is another one. Every couple of years, someone was going there. They would work as either a technician or a radio man. There hasn't been anyone, unfortunately, since 2017. There have been multiple attempts. Most recently, can't think of his name right this second, YL2 Golf Mike tried to go there, and unfortunately got to South Africa, and they said, go back home. They wouldn't allow him to go to Prince Edward. Excuse me, Marion. He was going to go to Marion. At one time, there were actually 3 people that were on Marion. ZS8Z, again, was the last operation from there. 3Y, here we go. Finally, we've got something to really look forward to. This is out in the public domain. 3Y0K is expected in January of 2026. That's by some of the operators from the last Bouvet operation that I wouldn't say failed, but they only made 19,000 contacts, and they had a lot of difficulties. But they're going back, and hopefully they've learned from the mistakes of the past. Dom 3Z9DX keeps saying, I'm going, and then never gives any details. So I don't think I would hold my breath on that one. Again, the last operation was in February of last year, 3Y0J, just under 20,000 contacts. YV0 Aves, last the expedition here was in 2007, YW0DX. It's a very political situation, both between the clubs and within the country itself. It is the #2 most wanted in Asia, and it is the #1 most wanted in Japan. Wow. If any of you were, let's see, I think it was 2 or 3 years, probably 3 years ago, at Dayton at the DX forum, W4DTA did a fantastic talk on all of the islands of Venezuela, and it included some real interesting details about Aves Island. FT8 or FTX Kerguelen. The last operation from here was in 2017. Again, this was a scientist operating as FT5XT, a Frenchman. He was there for like 3 months, and he would get on in his spare time, and he did a half-decent job. The last expedition here was in 2005 by the Microlight guys, and I can tell you that Theory, FT5, what was it, WW, the operator there, F6CUK, Theory, and another Frenchman are looking at going here. They've announced it, it's no secret, so we can only wish them all the best of luck, but it's number 8 on the list. Number 7, 3Y0, Peter 1. Peter 1 is also another one we have to look forward to if and when the Bouvet, the expedition by Ken, LA7GIA, is a success. They will then go with equipment and some of the same resources, maybe even some more manpower, to Peter 1 in February of 2027. That's the plan. And they'll be operating as 3Y0 Lima. Johnston Island. I've been here. At the time I was there, it was a really nice place to be. It's now barren. They have an old airport, and I think one building that's falling apart, that's basically condemned at this point. But the last operation here was in 2003. That was KT6E. I know several groups are working on this. Unfortunately, the Air Force has oversight on this, and that is probably the biggest stepping stone. Some of the other concerns in the past have been plutonium, Fish and Wildlife approval. They got rid of the crazy fire ants, and this is number 3 in Europe and number 6 worldwide. These are all worldwide numbers.
How do you get rid of the ants?
Number 5, Curie Island. The last expedition was in 2005. Unfortunately, it set a bad precedent for ham radio in the Fish and Wildlife Service out in the Pacific. I'll just leave it at that. You need a lot of permissions in order to go there, from Forest, Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA, PMNM, all of these have to approve, and I think also the state of Hawaii. So that's gonna be a tough one. I know at least one group, again, that is working on this. They have not been, they haven't made it public, but there is at least one group working on it. BV9P, Pratis. This one hasn't been on since 2003. BQ9P was the call. There was something in the works. There is currently something in the works. I can't say any more than that at this time. CE0X, the #1 most wanted inactive country. Actually, I think it's now, my math is wrong, 22 years since this was last on, XR0X. I've been aware of several groups trying to work on this one. Unfortunately, none of them have been successful. It seems that it's a security matter, at least on San Felix. I don't know what the situation is on San Ambrosia, the other island that's part of this DXCC entity. #2, everybody's favorite, Scarborough Reef.
There's Bob.
The last DXpedition here, believe it or not, was 2007. There have only been 4 operations from here, and there you see, those are the rocks. And there's Bob W6RGG at the last operation from here. I'm aware of something going on here, can't say any more on that. And,
Do the operation from a raft this time?
pardon?
That's a high tide picture.
Oh, high tide, yes, yeah, it looks like it. And anybody want to take a guess on the next slide?
Yep.
Bingo. P5, North Korea. Only 4 approved operations have taken place since it was added to the DXCC list in 1995. There are just over 12,000 unique contacts throughout the whole world. All of the hams, just over 12,000 people have worked it for a country. Of that 12,000, approximately, and this is a year or 2 old, 7,800 have claimed their DXCC accreditation for it. Multiple teams are trying to work on it. I don't see anything happening here. And the last operation that was approved was a December 21st, 2015 activity. So here's a list of the top 25 countries, and I've kind of separated them out into why I think they are needed. And you can see there's 8 countries that are, but basically because of politics. 7 of them are environmental concerns. 8 of them, I think, are just a matter of money. You just have to have the will and the backing to go. And then 2 of them, it's other, but it's pretty much you have to really be a scientist or an invited guest, and it would just be probably 1 person that would go. So I think that's pretty much. Oh, here's a list of the top inactive countries. The prefix, the last date they were active, and then the last call sign. But as you can see, CE0X, it's been a long time, KH3, BV9, KH7K. So those are the top 10 most wanted inactive countries. Like they haven't been on in a long time. So basically, I think in my next slide says this. Since I've been a ham, people have always kind of complained about, oh, it takes so long to get on the DXCC honor roll. And in the 70s, there was an article that was written, I can't remember who it was, but it was in QST magazine in the late 70s, and it said 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there are 340 countries on the current list. 331 or more gets you onto the honor roll. If you've been a ham since January of 2011, that would have meant you worked YK. And you've worked all the other countries since then that have been on, you could be on the DXCC honor roll, and that number is 13.75, which kind of falls right smack in the middle of this. It's kind of always been that number. I just want to say a couple of quick words. Some of you like FT8, some of you don't. This is not about that. The SuperFox software, you know, it had a couple of glitches. Okay, it was brand new, just released. There's been some problems. They fixed it, I believe. So that's what I have to say about that. MSHV. I'm not a happy camper about this. There's nothing we can do about it. MSHV, the software, can be set so that you can turn your radio on and your computer, walk away, go to sleep, have breakfast the next morning, come in, look at the computer, and look at all the stations you've worked. That's clearly against the DXCC rules. Can they enforce it? I don't know. I don't think so. Not without a big lawsuit, and I don't think the league wants to do that. So I really don't like MSHV because of that feature. So I've said that. A couple of terms that I want to make sure everybody knows. All-time new one, ATNO. New band country, NBC. Let's talk about those first. Oh man, I just worked all-time new one on 6 meters. I just worked my first Canadian on 6 meters. It's an all-time new one. Did you work VE on some other band, on some other mode? Then it's not an all-time new one. It's a new band country. I'll get off my high horse in a minute. A couple of other terms that I want people to know about. A one-hit blunder. Now, if you're on FT8 and all of a sudden you see BS99G, and somebody goes and clicks on it, it's only one person that saw that one-hit blunder. It's a software glitch is all it is. And occasionally you'll see somebody calling something and you'll go, what? I've never seen that call before. So that's what I call a one-hit blunder. A one-hit wonder is a real one. You're on, let's say, 160 meters, you're looking for 4 whiskey on FT8, and you see them once, and that's it. You never see them again. And it's a legitimate call. That's what I call a one-hit wonder. Another quick thing I want to mention here, POTA. These guys have got a fantastic program. I honestly think they're future DXpeditioners, to be honest with you. They go out, they set up their radio, they get on the air for a couple of hours, and they operate from this rare park and have fun. Everybody gets credit, you know, for working it, for being the one that operated. It's a fantastic program, and I just want to mention that. Don't be surprised if you see some of these POTA operators eventually going on to do some DXpeditions. Ribs, another fantastic rig in a box, fantastic innovation. And we're seeing more and more of these type of operations, and I think we'll see more to come. I think it's something we should embrace, because it's gonna be, it was the way the N5J guys got on the island and were able to set up with a minimum footprint. So it's a great program done by George to start with, and financed and helped with the NCDXF, Northern California DX Foundation. Next gen. And then the last thing I want to leave you with, this morning is, I hope everybody is a member of the ARRL. Some of you have beefs with them, I get it. But they're the only people out there, the only group that is organized and is fighting for our bands. You may not agree with them. Let your ARRL people know if you don't agree with something. Tell them, but don't not join because you don't agree with something. It's the only thing out there, and we all know CQ collapsed this year. Not that they were anything, they didn't really promote, well, that's not the right word. They weren't there in Washington to help with an ITU to help with our regulations and whatnot. So I would strongly recommend being an ARRL member. And I would say that even if I didn't write for QST, it's the only game in town. And I will leave it at that. What's my time like?
You guys got 15 minutes and I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Bernie, what are you seeing or hearing regarding some of these entities that have bio restrictions where the rig in the box technology may get them in the door, like they did at Jarvis? I know George and his married band of married men have really done a great job.
And they have.
And I think that is something that's gonna open the door here to some of these. So what do you see?
I agree, and I'm aware of at least one other operation in the Pacific that they are working on, that it looks very promising for next year. So there could be opening doors for future other operations in other places. Hopefully not just in the US.
Good.
Yes, sir.
With the rib in the or the radio in the box, does the operator, they don't need to be on the island?
Correct. They can either be on the ship, 300 meters out or whatever, or in this case with the N5J, the operators were all over the world. There were some in Europe, there were some in Japan, there were some in the US. The only problem, and that counts for DXCC, transmitter, radio, it's all there on the island. It's not on the boat.
But the operator's not.
Correct. And there's nothing in the rules that says that the operators have to be. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One, I'm a Luddite. What does MSHV stand for?
I don't know.
Okay. That's good.
I don't know,
applaud that.
honestly.
And the second one is about this follow-on on the rib deal. Where's the receive? If the transmitter's on the island, where?
Excuse me, I should have said receiver and transmitter. It's a radio.
So it's a
full
transceiver?
Transceiver, yes. I
Okay.
should have said that, yes.
Thank you.
Multiple transceivers.
Yes, in some cases, yes, it's multiple transceivers and multiple amplifiers, in this case, they had at least seven antennas, I think, maybe more.
No human presence.
Only to set up. And also to, once a day, they'd come fill the gas tank
Fill
for
the
the
generator.
generator, yes.
Oh.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate